Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 12-game Major League Baseball slate. It doesn't look like there's any weather issues today, so make sure to drop a like and comment and subscribe. Make sure to check out Kevin Roth on Twitter for weather situations, though, as some could pop out throughout the day, as there is rain around, but nothing looks too risky today. Before I get started, just smash that like and subscribe button. It really does help the channel a lot. Drop a comment below with your home run calls today as well. We have a big slate here, and we got a lot of pitchers. Pitching is kind of rough today, but we will get into it here. So let's go ahead and get started. My top overall pitcher is Andrew Abbott. He's been very solid in 6 starts, including home games. This game is away in Milwaukee, which gives him a little bit of an advantage, and he's been giving up just 5 earned runs in his 6 total starts. He also has 4 wins, and he's been over 20 fantasy points in 4 of the 6. The other 2 games have not been bad either. He was at 17 and 19.5 points, so I do think he draws really good metrics here. 2 good alternatives to him at the P1 option are Zach Gallen, who has been inconsistent this season. He's also been giving up earned runs, and his K rate is up and down. The matchup does give him potential, though, and he just hasn't been consistent throughout the season, but he does have good upside. And then Hunter Brown for Houston is an interesting spot here, as he's been up and down all season long, but this matchup is okay, but not great. He is a good P1 option, as he does have, 25 fantasy point upside, but it is a bit of a risky situation. Then for our P2 options, Jordan Montgomery draws a good start here against Chicago White Sox, and he's been good in 4 of the last 5 games, over 20 fantasy points, and he's facing a pretty weak offense. He's also collected 4 wins in that stretch, giving up a total of 5 earned runs, and if he can continue to pitch like this, and he'll be a viable option going forward. Some contrarian options off of him are Justin Verlander, who's been very inconsistent throughout the season. His K rate has not really come up very much, but he does have a bunch of 1 earned run games and a lot of sub 15 fantasy point games, unfortunately. He is a contrarian play due to his price, but he's somewhat risky, as he has not hit the ball. He has not pitched all that well this season. I also look at Ober for Minnesota against Baltimore. Now, Baltimore has been hitting the ball well recently. That's why he is a Hail Mary play today. His floor is high enough, though, to be a Hail Mary play, and he faced Baltimore last start and had 8 strikeouts. I don't expect a completely great game like that, but I do think he has some utility here. Civavel, sorry if butchering your name, for Cleveland is also in play here against Kansas City. He's had really just 1 really good game on the season fantasy point wise. Even though the matchup is okay, getting past 18 fantasy points is going to be somewhat tough, as his K rate has been somewhat limited, but he does draw some unique matchup metrics, and he doesn't really give up a ton of earned runs a lot of times, so he does have some potential here. And then Goober for Colorado. He's facing San Francisco at San Francisco, which does give him some added advantage. He's capable of a good game here on the road, as he's only had 1 sub-10 fantasy point game on the road this season. Though he hasn't had any over 20 fantasy points, a 15 fantasy point game is definitely capable here, and that price definitely helps you figure him out. Unfortunately, there's just a lot of pitchers in really bad situations today, so it's not a great pitching day. But we do have some good bats for you, so let's go and get into that. So Will Smith is my top overall catcher. He draws good metrics for this game. He's been kind of slumpy lately, though, but he does have home run potential, and he definitely draws great metrics, averaging 7.5 fantasy points a game over the last 10. Connor Wong is in play for Boston, who I think is a great team to stack today. He's also dirt cheap, and he's had some really good games lately. He also has massive home run upside, and he's got top-tier metrics and a top-tier matchup. So if he draws the start for Boston, he's definitely going to be in line for a good opportunity today. You could also consider Jonah Heim, William Contreras, Mitch Garver, Patrick Bailey, and Shea Langurlez at this position. Moving into first base, we're going to look at Justin Turner, who was... Let's see. Why can't I type? Was going to be a core play for me until I got through the entire list. So, guys, he's very, very close to being a core play, as he draws a really good situation, and he's a pretty good price. He's got top-tier upside, and he's been over 10 fantasy points in a lot of the games lately. He draws great matchup metrics, and I just really like his potential here. At second base, we're going to look... at other guys at this position. I can't even talk. Nate Lowe for Texas. He's a little bit more expensive, but he is a good contrarian option, as he's hitting the ball pretty well this season. He draws good home run upside, and he's got a top-tier matchup against the pitcher. Wilmer Flores is a good value play for San Francisco. He is facing Gomber, who can be really bad sometimes, and he draws great upside here with a good home run potential, and he has a very cheap price, which really helps. Freddie Freeman, Otani, Casas, Christian Walker, Josh Naylor, and Ryan Noda are also all in play here at this position. Moving to second base, we'll look at Mookie Betts here, as he's expensive, but he draws absolutely crazy metrics, as he's averaging over 15 fantasy points a game over the last 10 and hitting a ridiculous 382. He's been hitting home runs, and he's even doing it without hitting home runs. He's hard to ignore how good he has been lately, and so he's definitely in play today. Ketel Marte for Arizona also in play, as he draws fantastic matchup metrics here. Though he's been in a slump, he's somebody that I like a lot as a contrarian option off Mookie Betts. And then a cheaper option is Brendan Donovan, who can play in second base or outfield today, as he's dirt cheap and he has home run potential, but he does need to have a good game here to continue to be useful. But he does have good upside, and he can also play in outfield. And then Andres Gimenez, who I think is a core play today. He has absolutely hit the ball very well lately, averaging 11.9 fantasy points per game. And he is a core play for me, as he's just been really solid, and he's got a great matchup here against a pitcher who doesn't really strike out anybody, and he's not a guy that strikes out much anyway either. Also consider Marcus Semien, Matt McClain, and Gleyber Torres at this position. Maybe into third base, we'll start with Rafael Devers, who is a core play for me for Boston, as he is underpriced now. His price has dropped because he's been in a slump for a lot of the season, but he's really starting to hit the ball well recently, and he's starting to get some home runs, and also not really striking out much, which is nice. So he's got great potential here. He's a little bit underpriced, so that's really helpful. Jose Ramirez is also in play, as he's hit the ball extremely well lately, and he's in a fantastic matchup. He does have home run potential today, though he is more expensive than Devers. The metrics aren't quite as great as Devers are, but he's still a very good option on the slate. Candelario for Washington is also in play, as he draws good matchup metrics and is a good play versus struggling pitcher. He's been solid with almost 10 fantasy points a game over the last 10. Great value play there. And then Evan Longoria, also a good value play for Arizona, as he's got good home run potential, though he hasn't been starting a lot of games. He does have some good metrics. We also look at Josh Jung, Max Muncy, Gunnar Henderson, and J.D. Davis at this position. Moving into shortstops, we're going to start with Corey Seager, and I really like Corey Seager today, as he's hitting the ball very well and consistently. He is also scoring a good amount of fantasy points, and he has really nice upside. He's just absolutely crushing the ball, averaging over 10 fantasy points a game. He's very hard to roster today due to his price, but he's definitely viable. Carlos Correa is also in play here. For Minnesota, though he hasn't been as good as some of the other options this season. He's improved recently, and he's hitting the ball really good as a leadoff hitter, and he's averaging 7.5 fantasy points a game over the last 10, which gives him some nice upside. Then we'll look at Volpe for New York Yankees. Sorry if I'm butchering your name, but he is averaging almost 10 fantasy points a game over the last 10, and he's also hitting very well. And he draws a great matchup here with good metrics, so I do think he's a viable value play. Then we'll look at Chang for Boston. If he comes off if he gets activated this weekend and today's the day, then he will be somebody I would consider as a decent option, as he's hit the ball really well recently when he's played games, I should say, back in July. But he does draw some good potential, as he has home run upside. He is a Hail Mary play, though, if he draws a start. Ahmad Rosario is also in play for Cleveland, as he's hit the ball really well recently. He doesn't have a ton of home run upside, but he does have good hitting upside, and he has averaged over 10 fantasy points a game over the last 10. You can also consider Bobby Witt Jr., Gunnar Henderson, Francisco Lindor, and J.P. Crawford at this position. Maybe in the outfielders, we are going to start with our top-tier options. Masataka Yoshida, Adam Duvall, Mookie Betts, Adolis Garcia, and Lane Thomas are all top-tier options on the slate, all over $4,500, and they all draw really good matchup potential today. As for our value plays here, we'll start with Jarren Duran, who has really good metrics here. He's hit the ball really well recently and has really solid upside. He's not a huge home run guy, but he does hit the ball very well. Verdugo for Boston is also in play, as he's been inconsistent throughout recently, but he has been good throughout the year, and he has home run upside in this matchup, and I like his potential today. Boston looks like they're set to have a big game. Austin Slater for San Francisco, if he plays, he'll be somebody that's in play as he has a really good batting average. I do need him to start to be viable, but he is nice and cheap, and he helps you pay up for other options. Steven Kwan doesn't have a lot of home run upside, but he does have a lot of base hitting value and stolen base potential. He's hit the ball pretty well recently. He's improving as he started the season pretty rough, but he does draw some nice metrics here. Lars Nootbaar is a good option from St. Louis as he's pretty cheap and he has good hitting upside. Again, not a home run guy, but he definitely has good potential today. Brendan Donovan can also play this position, who I mentioned. And then Kowser from Baltimore is in play today as he's hit the ball. In the first game, he scored 9 fantasy points. In the second game, he scored 8. Though he got walked 3 times in those games and has only had 1 hit, he has managed to score a couple of runs, and his price is just too cheap to ignore with his potential for home runs and upside. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.